lives. And alligators are ambush predators. That means they like to sneak up on their prey undetected, very suddenly grab them and pull them into the water. That's how alligators would catch themselves a nice meal. So they would just sneak up on something right at the water's edge. Let's say a raccoon. They just go ahead and grab them, dart out very suddenly, and then pull them back into the water. And of all the animals on Earth, alligators have the strongest jaw muscles. So when they bite down, they're able to bite down with a force of over 2,000 pounds per square inch. And there's no other animal that can pry their way out of that.
Here he comes.
Now, I was talking a little bit earlier about alligators and crocodiles. Alligators tend to be a little bit less aggressive than crocodiles. They're generally not a threat to you as long as you give them that respect and you just keep your distance from them. They're not going to come after you. But even though they are very slow moving most of the time, they are capable of moving fast, even on land. Now you look at them, they've got those short limbs. They don't look like they would be able to run, right? They can actually run about 25 miles an hour. That's faster than Olympic sprinters run. They run somewhere in the neighborhood of 22 miles an hour.
Wow.
Big difference, though. An alligator is not going to spend a lot of time running. They don't want to tire themselves out too much. And typically when they're catching their prey items, they're not running them down. What they're doing is lunging at them from the water's edge. Now, when an alligator is most dangerous to you is going to be if you come across a female protecting a nest. They are very, very protective of their nests. Typical alligator nest is a very large mound of rotting vegetation, usually about 6 feet across and about 3 feet high. As that vegetation rots, it's going to incubate the eggs inside, so it's going to produce heat, and that's what's going to allow those eggs to develop into young alligators. There'll be about 25 to 50 eggs, about the size of chickens' eggs, in that nest, and that mother alligator is going to be near that nest from the moment she builds the nest until her youngsters hatch out. So she's not going to eat during that time. She's just going to protect her youngsters and make sure that they're safe. And oftentimes those little young alligators have trouble hatching out of the eggs. Once they're ready to hatch, they can actually call to their mother from inside of the egg, at which point that mother alligator will very gently break the shell of the egg in her mouth and then free the young alligator hatchling inside. That alligator hatchling will be about 6 to 8 inches long when it first hatches out, and they have a lot of predators to watch out for at that point. So that mother alligator is going to stay near her young for about the first 2 years of their lives. Now, they have a lot of little predators to worry about when they're small, including fish and birds and other alligators. Alligators can be very cannibalistic. They will go after the younger, smaller ones. The main exception to that is the mother alligator, and she's going to make sure that that does not happen to her young. She's going to protect them from the other alligators around. If she has to, she'll scoop all of them up into her mouth very carefully, and then swim around for a little while and look for a safe place for them to grow up and to live, free from other large alligators. And once again, if you are just joining us over here at Alligator Alley, we do have 19 American alligators in our exhibit here, so see if you can count them all. Since it's nice and warm out today, I think all of them are out on land, most of them anyway. Alligators will spend a lot of time on land just resting, and that usually depends on what the temperature is like outside. If it's warmer in the water, they're going to be over there. When it's nice and sunny out, most of them will be out laying on the ground. And this time of year, the alligators are not hungry. They actually fast during the winter and the early spring, and even the late fall as well. Usually that starts around the end of October. They just suddenly lose interest in feeding as it cools off. They're not able to digest food properly if it's cooler than about 60 degrees at any point during the day. And they understand this, so they don't actively hunt during those times. During the winter months, they spend most of their time at the bottom of the pond where the temperature is much more stable, particularly if it's very cold outside. And they just rest and they live completely off of the fat reserves that they will have in their tail. Now, speaking of that alligator's tail, it's actually about half of their body length. Their total body length is just the tail. That's what they'll use to propel themselves through the water. Generally, when they're swimming, they have their limbs tucked in, and they're just using their tail to propel themselves. That tail is very, very strong. It will allow them to jump out of the water. They can jump about 2/3 of their own body length out of the water. That's oftentimes what they would use to hunt. So they're going to lunge at things that are at the water's edge, or even if they see birds that are in the lower limbs of trees, they can jump straight up out of the water to grab them. If you are wondering which ones are the males, which ones are the females, they look the same on the outside, but we do have tags on them, on their front limbs. If you see a blue tag on the right, that is a male alligator. If you see a yellow tag on the left, that's a female. Also, the females are a little bit smaller. Now, almost all of these alligators are about the same age, about 12 years old. But the males will grow much bigger and they'll grow faster. So at this point, about 12 years old, most of the male alligators are 275 to 350 pounds and about 10 feet long. Most of the females are about 175 to 200 pounds and about 8.5 feet. So they're all still growing, but the females will grow much slower. Usually the full-grown size for a female alligator is somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 feet and about 450 pounds. Males can be much larger than that. It's typical for them to reach about 500 to 600 pounds and about 16 feet in length. However, the record size, the biggest American alligator ever recorded was 19 feet, 2 inches long, and weighed over 1,000 pounds. And if you are wondering, that alligator was in Louisiana. For whatever reason, the biggest alligators tend to be found in Louisiana. Now perhaps you're wondering, why do we have American alligators here at SeaWorld, since they're quite a bit different than most of the other animals you're familiar with here. You know, you think about the sharks, you think about the killer whales, maybe you don't think about the alligators when you think of SeaWorld, but there's a good reason to have them here, and that is because of the conservation story behind the American alligator, which is really quite amazing. American alligators were once on the brink of extinction. They were so popular with hunters because you can eat them. There's a lot of meat in that tail. Also, their hide is very popular for making leather. And it was around the 1940s and 50s that alligators were hunted so extensively that they almost disappeared. It was actually the hunters themselves that were concerned about the alligator. They wanted to preserve and protect American alligators for future generations to enjoy. So it was hunters that encouraged the U.S. government to step in to protect the American alligator. In the 1960s, the American alligator was listed as an endangered species, which meant that it was not legal to hunt them for about 2 decades. As a result, they slowly started to bounce back to the point where they became very abundant once again. And today there are millions of American alligators around. It's a very good success story. They have been able to bounce back. Now, they are still hunted a little bit, but there's limits to the amount of alligators that can be taken each year from each place. And they are still eaten, but there's alligators typically are farmed. So if you see alligator on the menu, it's generally from an alligator farm. And in fact, many of the alligators in this exhibit are from an alligator farm as well. There's one just east of Houston in a town called Anahuac, and that's where a lot of these alligators originated. So guys, I'm going to just stick around for a few more minutes to answer any questions you might have about our American alligators. Also, I work at the aquarium building. That's the Sharks and the Coral Reef building. We do have feeding shows that occur over there. The next one will be at 2 o'clock. There will also be one at 2:45 if you want to see a scuba diver hand-feeding spotted eagle rays, very beautiful stingrays. But if you have any questions about anything here at SeaWorld, I'd be happy to answer them for you. I'm right over here by the purple lamppost. I'm going to stick around for just a few more minutes. My name is Nick, and on behalf of all of us here at SeaWorld, please enjoy the rest of your day.
Nick, do you give names to the alligators?
Do we do maintenance?
No, give names.
Names. Oh, sorry. They all have numbers. There's a couple of them that have names because we have a department called our animal ambassadors. They usually start out with smaller alligators, and then they take them to schools. They take them on TV sometimes. And those have names, but most of these don't. We just know them as their number.
How often do you normally get an alligator from the farm?
A lot of them in here came in at about 3 feet long, which would be about 3 or 4 years old. Every now and then we'll get donations from other zoos and things that they grew too big for them. So, we've gotten some that were 7 or 8 feet long when they came in as well. And then every now and then somebody has one as a pet, which is not legal here, and so they get housed with us or with,